Dear subscribers, today we are going to address a controversial topic that has sparked lively debates within American society: the current disputes surrounding the IRS, border security, and aid in times of war to Israel and Ukraine. These issues have divided political parties and have had a significant impact on both domestic and foreign policy in the United States. First and foremost, the disputes over the IRS have been at the center of attention, with disagreements between parties regarding tax reform, tax rates, and tax benefits. Republicans and Democrats have divergent views on how to reform the IRS, leading to gridlock in Congress and hindering the functioning of the government. Republicans advocate for tax cuts to stimulate the economy and promote growth, while Democrats emphasize the need to maintain sufficient tax revenue to fund social programs and public services. These differences have led to a political stalemate, preventing the adoption of crucial tax reforms for the American economy. As a result, the functioning of the government has been hindered, as disputes over the IRS have blocked the adoption of essential budgets and tax measures. This has had an impact on the government's ability to meet the needs of the population in terms of healthcare, education, infrastructure, and other public services. Furthermore, these blockages have undermined the credibility and effectiveness of the government, fueling discontent and frustration among citizens. It is crucial for political leaders to find common ground on tax issues and work together to adopt reforms that benefit the entire population. It is also important for citizens to engage in the political process and make their voices heard to influence decisions made by their representatives. In conclusion, the current disputes surrounding the IRS have had a significant impact on domestic policy in the United States, hindering the functioning of the government and fueling discontent among citizens. It is essential for solutions to be found to resolve these conflicts and promote unity and stability in the country. Disputes over the IRS have been a constant source of tension between different political parties. The disagreements mainly revolve around how the IRS collects and uses tax funds, as well as the transparency of its operations. One of the main points of contention is the issue of income tax progressivity. Democrats generally support the idea of progressive taxation, where tax rates increase with income level. They believe this helps reduce inequalities and redistribute wealth more fairly. On the other hand, Republicans often prefer a proportional tax system, where all taxpayers pay the same percentage of their income in taxes. They argue that this encourages investment and economic growth. Another point of disagreement concerns tax loopholes. Democrats often favor the elimination or reduction of tax loopholes, which allow certain categories of taxpayers to benefit from specific tax advantages. They believe this promotes tax fairness and helps fund essential social programs. In contrast, Republicans often support maintaining tax loopholes, arguing that they encourage investment and stimulate the economy. These political disputes over the IRS have significant consequences for the functioning of the government and the daily lives of citizens. Firstly, they can lead to political gridlock and delays in adopting the budget and tax measures. This can impact the government's ability to fund its operations and provide essential public services. Moreover, disputes over the IRS can also have an impact on the economy as a whole. Tax uncertainty can discourage investment and limit economic growth. Additionally, frequent changes in tax policies can make financial planning difficult for businesses and households. Finally, these political disputes can also affect citizens' trust in the government and the tax system. When taxpayers perceive that the IRS is being used as a political tool, it can erode confidence in the tax system and lead to a decrease in tax compliance. In conclusion, Disputes over the IRS are an important aspect of tax policy that has significant consequences for the functioning of the government and the daily lives of citizens. It is essential for different political parties to find common ground to ensure a fair, transparent, and effective tax system. Disputes over the IRS are not the only sources of political tension. Another major point of contention concerns border security. Political parties have divergent opinions on the best approach to ensuring national security and managing immigration. Points of disagreement regarding border security are numerous. Firstly, there is a debate about the construction of a wall at the border with certain neighboring countries. Republicans generally support the idea of a physical wall to deter the illegal entry of people and goods. They believe this enhances national security by preventing the entry of criminals and drugs. In contrast, Democrats are often opposed to this measure, stating that it is costly, ineffective, and does not address the underlying issues related to immigration. Another point of contention concerns immigration and asylum policies. Democrats generally support a more open approach focused on protecting the rights of migrants and asylum seekers. They advocate for reforms to facilitate legal immigration and provide pathways to citizenship for undocumented immigrants already present in the country. On the other hand, Republicans tend to favor a stricter approach focused on rigorous enforcement of existing laws and strengthening border controls. These political disputes over border security have a direct impact on immigration policy and national security. Firstly, they can lead to legislative gridlock and difficulties in adopting significant reforms. This can make it challenging to implement coherent and effective policies to manage migratory flows and ensure border security. Moreover, disputes over border security can also have an impact on international relations. Restrictive policies can create tensions with neighboring countries and compromise security cooperation. At the same time, a too lax approach can raise concerns about national security. Finally, these political disputes can also have humanitarian consequences. Strict policies can make it more difficult for people fleeing persecution and violence to access asylum. This can lead to an increase in the number of undocumented asylum seekers and people living in precarious conditions. Political disputes over border security are not the only sources of international tension. Another major point of contention concerns providing aid in times of war to Israel and Ukraine. Countries have divergent opinions on the issue of providing military and financial support to these nations in conflict. Regarding Israel, the United States has historically been one of its main allies and security partners. Supporters of aid to Israel highlight the historical and cultural ties between the two countries, as well as the moral responsibility to support a democratic state in an unstable region. They also emphasize the strategic importance of Israel as a partner in the fight against terrorism. However, some opponents of aid to Israel raise concerns about Israeli policy towards Palestinians and alleged human rights violations. They question the idea that Israel needs significant financial aid given its developed economy and advanced military capabilities. Regarding Ukraine, the conflict with Russia has sparked debates about providing military and economic aid. Supporters of this aid emphasize the importance of supporting a sovereign country facing external aggression. They also highlight the democratic values shared by Ukraine and Western countries. However, some opponents of aid to Ukraine fear that it may lead to an escalation of the conflict with Russia. They also raise questions about corruption in Ukraine and the government's ability to effectively use the aid provided. These political disputes over aid in times of war have significant consequences for international relations and foreign policy. Firstly, they can lead to tensions between donor countries and those opposed to this aid. This can weaken cooperation and trust between nations. Furthermore, these disputes can also impact regional stability. When conflicting countries do not receive expected support, it can prolong hostilities and worsen human suffering. Finally, these political disputes can also affect the reputation and influence of donor countries on the international stage. Decisions regarding aid in times of war are often perceived as a reflection of a country's values and priorities. Therefore, divergent positions on this issue can influence a country's perception in the world. In conclusion, political disputes over aid in times of war to Israel and Ukraine are a complex issue that has significant consequences for international relations and foreign policy. It is essential for countries to find a balance between supporting nations in conflict, respecting human rights, and promoting regional stability. Political disputes over aid in times of war to Israel and Ukraine have significant consequences for the daily lives of citizens in these countries. The consequences of these conflicts can be felt in different aspects of life, including economic, social, and humanitarian. Economically, political disputes can lead to financial instability and a deterioration of economic conditions. Economic sanctions imposed on countries in conflict can affect trade, foreign investment, and economic growth. This can lead to increased unemployment, decreased purchasing power, and financial difficulties for many citizens. Socially, political disputes can also divide communities and create interethnic or interreligious tensions. Conflicts in Israel and Ukraine are often characterized by deep divisions between different factions of the population. This can lead to discrimination, violence, and social polarization, which has a negative impact on social cohesion and the well-being of citizens. Humanitarianly, political disputes can exacerbate the suffering of the civilian population. Armed conflicts in Israel and Ukraine have already caused enormous loss of life, forced displacement, and widespread destruction of infrastructure. Political disputes over aid in times of war can hinder the delivery of essential humanitarian assistance to affected populations, worsening already precarious living conditions. To resolve these conflicts and mitigate the impacts on the population, it is essential to promote dialogue and diplomacy. The countries involved must seek peaceful solutions and negotiate agreements that respect human rights and ensure the safety of citizens. International mediation can also play a key role in resolving disputes and promoting reconciliation. Furthermore, it is important to strengthen humanitarian aid to populations affected by conflicts. International organizations and donor countries must work together to provide medical, food, and shelter assistance to displaced persons. This can help alleviate the suffering of the population and rebuild communities affected by conflicts. Finally, it is crucial to invest in the economic and social development of countries in conflict. By improving the living conditions of citizens, creating employment opportunities, and strengthening infrastructure, tensions can be reduced and long-term stability promoted. In conclusion, political disputes over aid in times of war to Israel and Ukraine have profound impacts on the population. As we come to the end of this video, it is important to recap the main points we have discussed regarding the political disputes over aid in times of war to Israel and Ukraine. We have examined the economic, social, and humanitarian consequences of these conflicts and emphasized the urgency of finding peaceful solutions to end these disputes. Economically, we have seen that political disputes can lead to financial instability, economic sanctions, and a deterioration of economic conditions. This directly impacts citizens' purchasing power, employment, and economic growth. It is therefore essential to seek ways to resolve these disputes through dialogue and negotiation in order to restore economic stability and improve the living conditions of the affected populations. From a social perspective, we have highlighted that political disputes can divide communities and create interethnic or interreligious tensions. This can lead to discrimination, violence, and social polarization. In order to overcome these divisions, it is crucial to promote dialogue, tolerance, and mutual understanding. By encouraging the exchange of ideas and fostering cultural diversity, we can work together to build a more harmonious society. On the humanitarian front, we have underscored the suffering caused by these conflicts, such as loss of life, forced displacement, and destruction of infrastructure. It is critical to intensify humanitarian aid to the affected populations and ensure secure access to this aid. International organizations must collaborate to provide medical, food, and shelter assistance to displaced persons. By supporting these humanitarian efforts, we can bring relief to the most vulnerable individuals. In conclusion, it is essential to recognize the magnitude of the current political disputes and their impact on the daily lives of citizens. We call for collective action to find peaceful and sustainable solutions to these disputes. It is time to set aside differences and prioritize dialogue, diplomacy, and international solidarity. We sincerely thank our subscribers for their continued support and encourage them to share this video with their networks to raise awareness about these crucial issues.